Recording. All right, all right, all right. Happy week, happy weekend, right? Getting ready for this grind on Monday. Um, in the words of ET, thank goodness it's gonna be Monday, you know. Um, Honestly, I kind of look forward to the weekdays. If you really enjoy trading, you kind of look forward to the weekdays, honestly. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. I'm not gonna go over every single sector, but we're gonna take quick glances at things and just kind of see how how the market is kind of shaping up. Now, I may not be able to read futures the same exact way um, that the others do, but I'm gonna take my approach to it, and then we'll see what happens from there. I could have sworn I had a layout for yes, I do. Where did it go? Where is it? I just clicked on it. There we go. Y'all can see my screen, right?
I see it.
Okay, good, good, good. All right. Okay. Um, so I know the week, not the week, I'm sorry. I know the month has just opened up. So I'm not going to start off on the monthly time frame, but obviously you want to know what the month is doing. But again, it recently just started back up. So from what I'm seeing on the futures, YM, ES, and Q, when you look at the bigger picture, right? Obviously we have really that's interesting. Hold up, Comcast effing up. Um, so obviously what we have is a pullback on the weekly for the futures, right? And so what I'm looking at is how last week closed. And as you can see, we got the 2-1-2 reversal for both ES and NQ. And then on YM, we actually went outside week. But as you can see, the formation is kind of still similar, right? What did we do? We ran up, we pulled back, right? Swept the lows over here, right? And then almost came close to here, but obviously still respected um obviously still respected the fair value gap over here, right? Just coming just short of that. And then, we see the exhaustion and we see, obviously the reversal. And again, same thing that we're seeing over here, right? We see the run up, right? We see the pullback. We swept lows over here. So now we can look at that as our broadening formation right there, right? The bottom at least, and then the top you could probably pick up, boom, boom, right? So you see that we're bouncing from the lows, and then essentially, if next week or this week, I should say, upcoming, stays bullish, then what we're looking for is for the next target to be taken out on the weekly up here at 18,350, up here at 5213, and then up here, right where there is a bearish fair value gap at 39,345. All right. But the point of what I'm pointing this out, especially for the beginners. Oh, I didn't realize we had something in the chat. Okay, good. You were just answering it. The point of what I'm trying to say is that all of the time frames are looking rather similar. We have taken out lows with the drop, and it looks like we are potentially reversing back to the upside. Now, for me, that doesn't mean I'm saying like, yeah, we about to run, we about to hit all-time highs. We're just going to take it one step at a time. And so far, looking at the weekly, it's telling us that yes, we have a 2-1-2 reversal. Even though, again, I know futures just recently opened. We have a pullback here. We're looking for, by the time the week is done, we're looking for a reversal. Excuse me, a 2-2 continuation. In this case, a 3-2 continuation back to the upside, right? Also, um, now what does that mean over the week? Like, so what that means over the week is doesn't mean that we can't have any red days. I mean, ultimately, for me, I'm thinking bullish. So what I would like to see ideally is potentially um, a classic Tuesday low weekly profile, where essentially what we're going to see is something kind of like, well, let me flip to the daily. What we'll see is kind of like something like this, maybe dip back into fair value gap maybe about 50% of the way, or fill the gap right between Monday and Tuesday, only to do that for the rest of the week is what I'm looking for, right? If we displace below the weekly fair value gap that was created, the structure breaking one on top of that, um, then for me, I'll probably switch my bias. But since we've pivoted here, here, and here, we've been making higher lows. So I would like to see that continue. And like I said, ideally, what we're looking for is potentially a pullback, either hopefully Monday or Tuesday, um, and then we'll see the run back up, stretching for again these weekly targets and possibly higher. So if that is Oh, sorry. If that I thought I heard my daughter crying. If that is the case, um, I'm saying that to say, like, don't freak out. One, that if you see things running up on Monday within that first hour, there is potential that yeah, you might get that run up on Monday only for it to pull back. Same thing for Tuesday as well too. So you could like again, you could wait until Monday closes before you make it, especially if you're swinging before you make any actions, or if you're scalping or day trading, obviously wait for it to hit a level of support where lows are swept, and then you can go ahead and take that back to the upside, right? But yeah, ideally, what I'm looking for is for this fair value gap not to be invalidated. Uh, there is a fair value gap over here as well too. Again, we're looking for that not to be invalidated, and then we're looking for things to, we're looking for it to run up. Um, Ideally, I would also mark out this high as well too. If you're checking out the futures, just see what price does. If price uses that as support, same thing for over here. This high that was broken, it should have acted as resistance, but now that we've broken through, that's one of the things ICT talks about a lot. How what was once resistance can now act as support, and vice versa. So for YM, it would be over here for me that if price pulls back into this range, I'm looking for it. I'm looking for a bounce. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying like yeah for sure it's definitely going to bounce from there, but just looking for areas of where price could find a little bit of support before it takes itself back to the upside. Ultimately, I am bullish, right? But obviously, I know that stocks don't move in just one direction, right? Obviously, as you can see, right? We get the run up here, we get the pullback, only for it to continue and TTO. So essentially, we may get the same thing, a little pullback, only for it to TTO, taking out this high up here. I am recording, right? Yes, I am. Okay, good. Guess some of y'all was gonna crucify me. All right, now with that being said, let me go ahead and switch over to. I'm not gonna look at every single sector. As you can see, I have a lot of them here, right? But first one that I want to take a look at, sectors wise, is going to be jets. Now, I'm only gonna look at the month just simply because of just kind of see like how the previous month ended, right? And don't mind the arrows. This is just a theory that I have in place. Um, and so far, so good. I mean, we did go outside. Obviously, it's a bearish outside, but it looks like, again, we came back to this previous high here. And again, swept that, couldn't displace below that. So essentially we could stay inside this month, potentially setting us up for the 3-1-2 to the upside, right? Or we could go 3-1-2 to the downside. But what we're looking for this month is to make sure price does not displace below the low, or honestly, I'm looking for it not to displace below the close of the previous month. I am focused also on like what is price going to do up here. Ideally, I want to see price come up into this range, and either reject and pull back and then continue up higher, or come into this range and that'll be the rejection point right there for us to potentially start looking at some puts. And again, this is for jets, so we're talking about uh, why do I always want to say Dallas? DAL. Delta, we're looking at American Airlines. We're talking about United Airlines, JetBlue, etc. That's what I'm talking about when we're looking at, oh, Boeing, of course, Boeing, right? Speaking of, man, y'all saw that article about the second whistleblower dying? Man, I kid you not, if a third one died, yo, they're hiring people. Actually, let me not say that. They might be listening right now. Let me chill. I don't know nothing about y'all plans, Bowen. Okay. Um, so when you look at on the week, right? On the week, it looks like we are exhausting a little bit, right? You have this previous high over here, right? That since we crossed it the first time, kind of gave us a little bit of a turtle soup situation. And since that point, we have been failing, right? If you look at that right there, we've been failing to get back above the open of this three, right? So I know we're looking at the week as bullish, but what we could potentially see is a pullback back down to the lows. Let me clear this out so y'all can see it, so it's not as messy. What we are looking at is potentially is a pullback back down to the lows, right? Here's your weekly broad information here, and then let's get your weekly boom, right? So again, we're failing to price is failing to displace above this previous open up here, as well as back failing to get back to the previous highs up here as well too. So essentially, what you could see is again a pullback. We did get a 322 rev strat back to the downside. So again, you may get a short-term pullback. That's something that you could look at. However, what I would say is to chart it to both sides. Obviously, this is still a bullish candle, right? So I want to make that one clear. And it looks like we just closed slightly below the previous week's close. So we'll see what happens. But I think there's an opportunity here again to maybe grab some quick puts if it does trigger to the downside. This one is one, like I said, could either go, it can go either way. Um, but I think, if you're prepared for both sides of it, you can probably flip this into, I call it a double play, one side to puts and then one side to calls. On the daily, you also have a fair value gap that the 50% has been respected. However, again, to the upside, what happened when we try to get above this high? We try to get above this high, we failed, right? We exhausted and came back down. As a matter of fact, that is a broadening formation, smaller one, but it's still a broadening formation on the daily. As a matter of fact, let me just show you real quick. Boom, boom, and then boom. Oops, shit, and then boom, boom, right? So even though it's small, you do have a little tight range that price is working within. So what we could see is maybe price pulls back into the fair value gap again, maybe sweeps the lows again before heading up, or yeah, price could try to take out these highs again. If that happens, what I would want you to look for is if Jets does that, you want to wait for this retest to make sure it's real and make sure the move is legit and not some bullshit before getting in, and then ultimately that's what you're looking for. You know what I'm saying? Or what could happen? Let me clear that out real quick. If we look at the weekly, right? So let's say for shits and giggles, we do run it up, right? From 20 all the way up to 21. Pay attention to 2106. Pay attention to 2106, which is also where another high is on the daily. Um, for I guess that would be considered a double top, right? So for it to hit here, double topping with that, and then ultimately you see that pullback, right? So if it does trigger to the upside and you do go calls for any, airline, make sure you have jets open, right? Because you would hate it for, price to come up and hit 21 and exhaust right in the middle or right at the beginning of this rejection block and then, kind of fall right back through. And then you'd be like, oh, what happened? So again, I put this in here because there's opportunities for both ways, right? And this is kind of the way I think as a swing trader is not necessarily looking for just the immediate move. If you can kind of get the game plan out and kind of mark your levels out, you could literally keep playing the same exact ticker up and down so long as you know your levels. You know what I'm saying? Hold up, let me see. We got something in the chat. No comment. Oh, about the Boeing thing. Yeah, 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 yeah. You never know, bro. It's technology. He might be listening right now. So I don't know shit about y'all planes. I hear they're great products. Yeah, Boeing. Um, but if y'all ever hear me just disappear for like, ever, just know. All right. Anyway, so that's Jets, right? Let's move on to um and again, like take notes of it again. What you look for when you look at the sector, especially for you beginners, when you look at the sector, you're looking for tickers within that sector that kind of have a similar setup. Doesn't have to be the exact same setup, but you're looking for that similar setup, so that kind of, again, you have an idea, excuse me, of which way to play it. Now for smaller accounts, actually all of the tickers are small account friendly. For small accounts, I would say AAL. And the reason why I'm pointing it out because it is still right. We were in puts. I'd already taken profit when it dropped down to what was it? Was it 13? Yeah, when it dropped down to 13.34, I had taken my profit because I knew it swept lows and I knew that we were gonna get that reversal back to the upside. But when I had talked about AAL, we talked about a fair value gap that was still being respected as an inversion fair value gap over here, right? So we create the fair value gap, we cross below it, try to come back and retest, only to fail through, came back down, and it looks like we're trying to come in. Price is trying to was trying to come and do the same exact thing, but as you can see, Friday's close was rather bearish. Now, I also have a previous swing low, and I do want to comment on that. This is why it's important that when you've charted out a play, don't immediately erase levels that have been mitigated already, because you never know when price is going to come back to revisit those same exact levels, right? So here we have a two up, and yes, obviously we can continue going two up and coming right back into the same fair value gap that we've been working out of. But here we have a two up. um, I'm looking at this previous swing low because I'm noticing that price, the whole time that I was in the AAL trade, price was like a magnet to this 1386 level, either, falling below it, but then coming back, like, or actually let's start over here, right? So here we start out highs, and then what happens, right? We came back down, and then we came right back to the same 1386 range. Over here, same thing, drop, come back as a magnet. We close here only for the next day to open up right back around that 1386, and then again drop only for the next day to come right back up as a high. So yeah, as you can see, that 1386 level is kind of a magnet. So we failed out of the fair value gap. Ideally, what we're looking for is a potential 2-2 reversal back to the downside, or we can end up with a 2-up exhaustion and then, possibly a shooter to get that 2-2 reversal back to the downside. If that were to happen, I would say probably look at the 13.5 put. I'll let you choose the expiration. No, not because I don't know what expiration to choose, but I want y'all to learn for yourselves. I want you to feel comfortable in your contracts that you're choosing as well too. Oh, we got some comments. Hold up. No, we haven't looked at that yet. You didn't miss anything, Doc, except for I went over futures from my perspective. Can I look at Emerald or ET when I get a chance? All right, sure. Um, XLV and Bug. I have not looked at bug. That's not one of the sectors I wanted to look at. Well, I was going to look at. I was just going to keep it to the main ones, but if we have time, for sure, because there's, like I said, there's like 9 other tickers that I want to look at as well too. So anyway, that's AAL. Again, if it does, head to the downside, honestly, the swing low should be your target, right? Which is the reason why I'm saying the 13.5, unless you deciding to go out like weeks, right? In which case your target should be 1272 down, 1272 down here. All right. Um, so anyway, that's AEL. But again, I'm only saying that I'm only using this as an example because it's already been charted out. But again, you can look at UAL, look at DAL, look at JetBlue, look at what is it, Save for Spirit as well too, right? Another sector to look at real quick is what was the one that I had? So actually XLB is actually kind of bullish in my opinion. I know the full time for so first off, let me be clear. Full time frame continuity is not. Let me go to the daily so you can see what I'm talking about. See, the day is up, the week is down, the month is up, the quarter is down. So from a full time frame continuity perspective, this is not ideal. However, let's dig in a little bit. Let's deep dive a little bit into it, right? So, what do we have? First off, market structure is still bullish. We have not taken out a low and shifted market structure on the month. What we have is an immaculate run up from the lows, right? And we get a pullback the next month, right? We made a higher high and we get a pullback. The only thing is this monthly fair value gap that was created is still being respected on the month. Okay, previous highs are still acting as and the fair value gap still acting as support. So right now the month is currently inside, and honestly, unless we get like a really strong push from materials, I know we're at the beginning of the month. Probably going to stay inside. Probably would set us up for a potential 212 to the upside, assuming we continue bullish, right? But all you're seeing is again a run from the lows. Actually, really, it's from here, right? Because this is where it pivots and we start when we start making higher lows, right? And then we took out the highs over here. We took out this relative equal highs, so we've made a higher high. So we're looking for price to come back, potentially and possibly make a higher high, and we go from there. Now, looking at the weekly it did end up bearish, but then when you look at it, what happened? We get a pullback, right? We have a right. We have a fair value gap right here, and that's exactly what we just wicked out of, right? I mean, obviously, technically, we also have a fair value gap here as well, too, right? So, but this is a fair value gap that we wicked out of. Actually, technically, yeah, because this displaced above it. So, no, yeah, it's respecting both actually when you really look at it. So this one hit into the wick hit into it, but when you look at it, we displaced right back above this fair value gap, and same thing again too, right? Dipped into the same fair value gap up here, and we ended up displacing outside of it. So this could be the beginnings of a possible TTO back to the upside. And then also another thing to look at is the fact that we did close just slightly, I believe, above our close on the previous week. So we're looking for, even if price were to dip back in here, we're looking for price to end up on the week displaced above and outside of this fair value gap and potentially to take out the highs, excuse me, at 90.55. Looking at the daily, right? What are we seeing? Let me clean this shit up real quick. So on the daily, it gives you a little bit of a clearer picture, the fact that we are coming from the lows, right? And just like we did when we looked at the weekly, right? When we looked at the weekly of um, I'm sorry, on the month. When we looked at the fact that we were coming from the lows here, what are we doing? We're making higher lows, right? So when we look at the daily, same thing is happening, right? We're making lower lows until we get this pivot. And since this pivot, we have made a higher low. And so we're looking for that to basically continue, right? We broke market structure to the upside, and I think we almost did it. No, we closed above. So yeah, we almost broke market structure to the downside on that Thursday, but didn't do it. And then we get the 2-2 reversal. So now what we're looking for is at least on the daily for the two up to come back to this daily high and potentially get above it and maybe hopefully use that as support, um, a little bit later on. But even though full time frame continuity is giving you, mixed signals, when you look at it, when you really look at it and zoom in, you'll see that, ultimately there is still a really good chance that this XLB ends up being bearish, right? We had the retracement. As a matter of fact, let me check that real quick. Shout out to Biker. Hopefully, I'm doing this one right. Let's see. It should be from this to this, right? So, okay. So, yeah, we never actually took out equilibrium. We just came close to it and then bounced off of it, right? But again, looking at the larger time frames, we're still in bullish structure, right? So I would expect that you'll probably see a continuation. Again, barring something happening, you'll probably see a continuation with the move back to the upside. I'm trying to look for if there's any bearish fair value gaps along the way that may hurt this. Oh, we're above it. But even that, and then also from a strat perspective, we're working on a PMG setup to the upside, right? Starting from this three candle here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles where the high of each candle is lower than that of the previous. So all of these candles, the highs of each one of them, I would mark out because they're every single one of them are targets for price to be taken out. So with that being said, for materials, NUE, NEM, FCX. There's one more that I'm forgetting, but I can't think of off the top of my head. But go look at the sector holdings. I dropped an Excel a long time ago. If not, just go look it up online as well too. All right. All right, good. So just checking to see if we had any next. Let's go to communications. This one, probably biasedly excited about because I'm in Netflix. But really, really, really excited about XLC. As you can see, we had the run up. I'm still sticking to my long term of what I said since the beginning of the year. I still think communications wants to take out and hit all time highs, just like XLI did, just like XLK did. And I think it still has the potential to do it, obviously. We're just in May. We still have a lot of time to go. I love how we did the pullback. We went outside. So now we're looking for the 3-1 to stay 3-1, or if we get a strong enough push on communications, we're looking at a 3-2 back to the upside. But ideally, I would probably want to see that 3-1-2 to take out the highs of 86.36, and then possibly look for the pullback there at that point. Looking at the weekly, so what are we seeing on the weekly? And this is probably why it's one of my favorites. Is the fact that we swept the lows. Oh shit, my bad. The fact that we swept the lows over here, right? Both of these were not once but twice and rejected off of it, and we ending the week as an inside hammer. If you study the strat, you would know that the hammer is an actionable signal. So we are actually set up for a 2-1-2 reversal back to the upside potentially. Okay. We are also working on a pivot machine gun to the upside 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where the high of each candle is lower than that of the previous candle of the previous range. So every single one of these highs, 1, 2, 3, 4, well, this one too, is once the next week's candle opens up, every single one of those highs would be targets to be taken out. Um, so that's essentially what we're looking for. Fact that we swept the lows, made the broad information. We're coming back from the lows. I'm really liking this inside hammer on the week to set up for a 2-1-2 reversal back to the upside, and ultimately, maybe not this week, but ultimately looking for that TTO back to the upside for 83.59. And then, yeah, our next step would be 86.36. With that being said, um, obviously Meta, actually, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Let me go to the daily. So on the daily, what do we see? Again, we see the lows, right? And we see love that this gap has already been filled, right? Gap created, price pulls back, fills the gap. And then what do we do from doing that? We get the reversal back to the upside and we break structure back to the upside on the daily. And again, 2-1-2 reversal back to the upside. So what we're looking for is the 2-2 continuation on communications. That would probably be my first target. I know there's a target here, but we already crossed it with this wick. So that would be my first target of 81.23. And then we continue to go from there. But really looking for that 2-1-2 back to the upside, right? Now, I will say that high should act as resistance considering that there's also a bearish fair value gap here that we tried to get past the first time over here. Uh, couldn't quite do it. So let's see what happens this time around. Again, when you're charting, you always want to know where potentially price could give you some obstacles, could give you some resistance, etc. Okay. But I do, like I said, I do like the TTO, the potential for the TTO back to the upside, right? And as far as the top of the Broadman formation, if you wanted to draw it out on the weekly, excuse me, you could probably just go from here to there, keep it simple, and you'll see that we definitely have a lot of room to the upside. Okay. And then again on the daily, a lot of room. Not really sure why my internet's going slow. Comcast gonna have to owe me some money, but definitely like this TTO back to the upside as well too. So with that being said, starting at the weekly, you could probably take a look at Meta. Um, yeah, so Meta essentially did the same thing, sweeping the lows. Actually, let me clear this shit out. All my old shit. There you go. Boom, boom. There's massive fair value gap, right? So we swept lows right here. Not quite lows, but came back into the fair value gap, respecting so far at the 50% consequent encroachment, respecting that. So essentially, what we're looking for again is a 2-1-2 reversal back to the upside. Looking for, let's see, did we get an OTE entry? Because if we did, I'm gonna be so mad at myself. Okay, not quite. But we did get below equilibrium, so came into a discount a little bit. Probably hence the reason why some people probably started, or the algos probably started buying it up once we got an approach close to this 0.62 level right here. So all right, but yeah, what we're looking for is the 2-1-2 reversal back to the upside. And again, love how we took out the lows. So now we have room again back to the upside. Really to back to all-time highs, right? So I'm not saying immediately go for 530, but if you're feeling froggy on some not leaps, but if you're feeling froggy on like something, a month or two out, 530 might be something that you want to go ahead and take a look at because again, um, we stretch the lows, so we have room. Um, we have room, a little bit of room to the top, right, to take out that 530 and get above those highs there, right? Looking at the daily for Meta, we are in the gap, right? So I'm not saying that's all going to be closed out this week, but we are in the gap, right? So you want to draw that out. Make sure you put your 50% just in case price starts having a little bit of issues um, around that level, right? But yeah, definitely, got a gap fill above, got some targets above as well. Two weeklies looking pretty good as well. Again, full time frame continuity in your favor, except for the quarter. And honestly, I believe that could be. Let me see. So what? Just another $30, and we flip the quarterback. And that's definitely possible before June is done, right? To go make that $30 move. So before it's all said and done, Meta might end up being, back in FTC. And again, just be aware. I would also be aware if we do get halfway across the gap fill, mark that low out, right? Because it should have acted as support. Now that we're below it, it may act as resistance at 473. Matter of fact, you could probably even use that as a target. Maybe if you want to get, something for 2 weeks out, you could probably look at the 475 contracts. I'm saying that without having looked at, price or volume or OI. Obviously, I'll leave that homework up to you. All right. So, there's obviously other tickers to look at. I'm not going to fully explain this one out because I've put in my analysis in the Tensho alerts chat. But yeah, so far so good. So far it's following um, the theory, right? I thought it was either going to bounce off of this Broadman formation or like what we saw with Meta, that it was going to bounce off of this fair value gap. In this case, it just bounced off of the Broadman formation. I also wanted it to close. Actually, I can get rid of this weekly entry since we're coming with a new. Let me close this out. There we go. Since we're coming with the new weekly entry. Same thing for this. All right. So, what was I going to say? Yeah. So I like that. Again, we took out the lows, couldn't displace below, swept. There's your liquidity, and now we're looking to potentially reverse back to the upside. I am well aware of this fair value gap that we're currently entering into. I think I had mentioned it before. And then also, I am keeping track of what price does once we get up to 600. This is a previous low that may act as resistance as well. But so far, so good. Netflix is playing its part, doing exactly what I thought it was going to do. Found its support, and nice little run up last week, as you can see, right? Hit the bottom of the Broadman formation, even on the retrace, still making higher lows comparative to this pivot here. And then yeah, we had the three. I kind of screened this in the group that Netflix went double outside on the daily. I was already in it, but kind of screaming that. And then what do you see? What happened? Pay attention to double outside formations. Like I've just recently paid attention to them, like I want to say probably like 4 months ago, but very explosive. I actually missed out on a crowd run up because of it. And I told myself, like, if I ever see double outsides, never again, I'm gonna make sure that I pay attention to them. So as you can see, it went double outside, and then what do we see? Now, double outside doesn't always mean that it's gonna go bullish, but the point of what I'm trying to make is that very decisive move after the double outside formation. All right, very, very decisive move. Um, as you can see, I got a lot of stuff to clean up, stuff that I can remove from the daily side of it. But and yes, we can probably get rid of this now as well too. Now that we've cleared that, so yeah, essentially, we're in the gap. Just slightly above, very slightly above. So I would not be surprised if we get some sort of a rejection and pullback. I originally thought that we were going to close below 579.21. We just closed slightly above it, had a nice little push towards the end on Friday for that. But yeah, Netflix, what did I say? I didn't grab the 600s because I was already in the sevens. So I'm not really sure what percentage you should be at. But shit, if you listened, I mean, from a move from 565 up to 579, and you got the 600 call for 517, you should be up. I don't know what percentage, but you should be up. So yeah, and then the 700 calls we have until next month, right? So if we can even get to like, if we can fill this gap and get up to 600, hopefully before May 17th, then yeah, even better. You know what I'm saying? Then we have a lot more time to get up to that 700 level. But also, I do want to say you don't have to get 700 on the money, right? You could You just need it to go up. I'm just targeting buy side liquidity on the week at 700 up here. But you don't have to, I mean, you just needed to move in that direction. So please, please don't take that as me saying like, don't get out until you hit 700, right? If you feel, you know, that you've made enough and, you don't want to be greedy, that's fine. And you have to be okay with that and be okay. Like if price continues to move up, be okay with that. That's fine. You made your profit, you made your money, on to the next one and leave it alone after that. All right, let me pause here. No questions? Okay. All right, so that's Netflix. Again, 600 517. Or, I mean, if you want to give it more time, go for the 600 June. But yeah, 600 517 or 700 June or 700 July if you want to, again, give us some extra time. But yeah, I like this move. I would love to see the gap get filled within the next 2 weeks, hit that 600, and then we go from there. Last one in XLC to look at is Google. All right. So Google is, last month did create all-time highs. Um, Looks to be so far like, again, I know the month is just beginning. Looks to be like we're going to continue up. Still respecting, the previous high that it took out. Um, so yeah, I know we're at all-time highs and I know there's potential exhaustion. But I kind of feel like price is going to try to come back and retest this 174 71 level on the month, excuse me. Looking at the weekly, right? So we get a 3 and then after you go outside, yeah, there's going to be some profit taking. So I'm not really surprised by this, but I love how the week ended up as a holy grail hammer, right? Love that. Love that to go 312. Not till June. Okay, love that to go 312. Oh, that'd be nice though. Hey, somebody make a mental note of June 10th for Google. That's the ex dividend date. So we might see a little spark of a run um leading up to the ex dividend date. Just throwing that out there. But somebody make a mental note of that. All right. So yeah, we ended the week as an inside hammer, actionable signal. So we're looking for, again, since the highs are still being respected, we're looking to go 312 to the upside, potentially to make higher, potentially to make another all-time high. I would probably target the 175 call for May 17th, right? We have an ATR of $4.77, basically $5. um, it's realistic to think that price action can run up $8 in the span of 2 weeks, right? Hopefully that makes sense to you why I'm saying that. And then yeah, after going double outside, we ended up going, Nirvana, but again, Nirvana hammer, right? So we got a hammer on the week, we got a hammer on the day. Essentially, what you're seeing is the gap up from earnings, and you're seeing the pullback. The gap is not quite filled. Actually, kind of curious to see. Yep. So we hit the 50% of the gap. That's all. Yep. Hit the 50% of the gap, holding the 50% of the gap. So we're looking for a 132 back to the upside, right? On the daily. So if it does trigger to the upside, wait for it to come back and retest maybe that same entry. But yeah, I would say take a look at the 175, or if you're feeling froggy, the 180 for May 17th, whichever one I guess has the better OI and the better volume, I guess. All right, let me go back to what is. So we did Netflix, Meta, Google, AAL. All right, let's switch gears real quick. Let's go smaller. Well, actually, Google's still small account friendly as well too. But switching gears to Neo. Um, I think Neo has earnings coming up soon. If I'm not mistaken. Somebody can put it in the chat. But here's what I'm seeing with Neo. What I'm seeing with Neo is that one, we broke through the fair value gap but couldn't displace below it, right? Of this bullish fair value gap that's being tested. This is a bullish fair value gap from 2020, June of 2020, right? So we fell back down to that, couldn't displace below it, and looks like we may have found finally some support for Neo, right? Neo's a China stock, so it does tend to run with a lot of the other Chinese stocks. Just throwing that out there. Um, so just be aware of that. If like the China stocks are having a bad day, I wouldn't think to go calls on Neo just yet. But on the month, we get the 2-2 reversal, and obviously we're in force, so we're looking for that to continue. Might find some resistance up at seven, up in the $7 range, because you also have, oh shit, okay, because you also have a bearish fair value gap from 634 to 7, which is why I chose the 6 call, not going against Big Bama. I love the 7 call as well too. But I just, I want to see it get to 6. And if it goes further, it goes further, cool. But I just want to see that, because technically we have not broken structure back to the upside, right? So technically we're still in a bearish market structure. So this could very well, on the monthly hit the fair value gap and then reject even lower. Obviously, that's going to depend on what's happening with earnings as well too, right? Looking at the weekly, yeah, weekly we definitely took out all the targets. We did not take out the double top just yet, right at 637, which is also another reason why I chose the 6 call and not the 7, because again, you might find some resistance around here at the relative equal highs at 630 and 634. I did say 637. My apologies. But yeah, would love to. Again, you're at 557. Um, this is one because the contracts, I believe, are cheap actually. The 6 call for May 17th, last I looked, it was like $18. So if you're gonna jump into it, you definitely should not be doing one or two contracts. $18 contracts, times 10, that's $180. You're talking about a $200 investment. I would probably at least go 10 contracts on it if you're gonna go do it. But yeah, you have FTC to the upside, 2-2 reversal, 3-2 reversal on the week, 2-2 reversal on the month. Um, you know, and then I think on the daily we have an inside hammer on the daily as well too, that we're hoping will respect the daily fair value gap right here as well. So even if price were to pull back, look for it to possibly wick around this fair value gap. And if it does, like I said, you can probably start looking at um, the reversal back to the upside, right? Or again, you get the 2-1-2 continuation, not reversal. My apologies, because this is a 2 up. You get the 2-1-2 continuation to the upside. Again, look for that 6 call. Um, look for that trigger, look for that 6 call, and then, like I said, go from there. Now, if you're going for the 7 call, that's fine. I'm not saying that's a bad option. Just if price starts to fizzle out, assuming we run it up all the way up to here, if price starts to fizzle out at 630, don't be afraid to just take your profits, and it's okay, right? Even if it continues to run up, there will be another opportunity, because at some point there will be another pullback. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's Neo. And again, I'm gonna give total credit to Big Bama. He asked me about it a couple of days ago. I said it looked good, but I did want to take the time to kind of put it out there for the rest of the group. And just kind of share the wealth, so to speak. So yeah, if it triggers to the upside, and again, your trigger is going to be, for the daily, it's going to be 558. If you trigger to the upside, then again, take it up, and I would say go grab that 6 call or 7 call. Just make sure. I think for the 7 call, Bama recommended the June calls. So yeah, or if you're gonna do June, I'd probably say go heavy. Excuse me, go heavy, and then if you see price starting to resist a little bit here, you know, take your profit, leave runners, right? And the reason why I'm saying, like, why I'm thinking it might, find some resistance, just look at the wicks over here, right? A lot of exhaustion, 3 candles over here, exhaustion over there, exhaustion over there. So clearly a lot of resistance around, that level. All right. So just want to put that out there. Okay. Let me go back to my list. And don't worry, I just want to get through my list and then I'm going to come back to what y'all put in the chat. Uh, AMD, AMD. Okay, we're making good time. After this, I got to get my daughter to bed and then I can go ahead and start my work. Okay. Looking at the monthly, right? As a matter of fact, I think, did I draw it on this? Hold on 1 second. Okay. So not quite OTE levels. OTE levels actually would be down here where you have a fair value gap that broke structure. As a matter of fact, um, I'm not saying AMD will do it because I'm kind of bullish on AMD, but set an alarm. If shit comes down here to OTE entry, right where there's a structure break and fair value gap, and you see that shit being respected, boy, load the fucking boats on a swing call back to the like for real. Load the fucking boats on a swing call back to the upside, probably targeting 180. I wouldn't say go all the way up here to the top. Um, Maybe right here at the rejection block. No, fuck it, just go 180, right? Because I mean, we're talking all the way down here at like 130. So obviously, you would do it with time, right? I'm not saying like, oh, just go a month out, go get 180. No, you'll probably go like 2 or 3 months out. But yeah, lovely. Anyway, um, so what we're seeing on the month again is market structure is still to so that was actually a question that came up. Somebody was asking like what's the difference between a reversal and a retracement. So for me, what I'm looking for with the reversal is I'm looking for a price if it were to reverse, I'm looking for price to do this. Oh shit, my bad. Hold on 1 second. So we got this high right here, right? So that was once resistance over here, but we crossed over. So now when price comes back, if the bullish run holds and is going to be intact, we're going to see that, right? If the bullish run fails, we're going to see that. But then what would tell me that we're going to do a reversal is when it comes. Well, what would tell me that this is a reversal, not a retracement, is one when we break and displace below that, and then the inevitable retest, and then we do that. All right. So if something like that happens, then I'm like, all right, it's done, right? It's not a retracement whatsoever. Okay. So just throwing that out there. But it does also depend on what time frames you're looking at as well too, because what could be essentially a reversal on a smaller time frame is really just a retracement on a larger one. So if you're swinging, make sure you're paying attention to the higher time frames. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk about that when we get into cost as well too. Hold on 1 second. Did I get a? All right, sorry about that. Just have to answer that real quick. Caught the nasty move on NQ on the minute. Yeah, that is a nasty move on NQ. That minute candles. But actually, I'm kind of happy. I'm really happy this pullback is happening now. It kind of makes me feel like we might run that shit up in the morning, but we'll see. Let me come back to AMD. Come back here. All right, there we go. All right, so um, as you can see, right, drawing your broad information, we also have a lot of space back to the upside as well too. So for me, this is a pretty good spot for us to potentially see a reversal back to the upside. Why? Because on the monthly, we end up we're currently working on a hammer on the monthly. Also on the week, what do? We swept the lows, but could not displace below it, right? So we're looking for potentially either to go inside or to go 312 back to the upside, right? Now you do have a little bit of resistance up here at 161. Um, but we all know how AMD moves. If that shit wants to run, it'll run, to be honest with you. But yeah, like I said, we swept the lows, so now ideally what we'd be looking for is for that reversal back to the upside. And again, where it looks like 180, 185 is going to be the level to look for. Looking at the daily, again, after sweeping the lows, now that we zoom in a little bit closer, after sweeping the lows, we have our Broadman formation that we're bouncing off of. We get the 2-2 reversal, and we got a gap to go attack, right? So we get above that gap, we're looking at being in the area of 158, possibly up to the 160s as well too. But just keep in mind we have not broken structure back to the upside, right? Only thing that we're seeing is that we just weren't able to displace below the lows. So yes, there is a potential reversal, but I do also want you to take in everything and understand that we have not broken structure back to the upside. We are still in a downtrend. We are still making lower highs. But y'all know how AMD moves. Y'all know how chips move. When they're ready to run, they run. And I think we definitely have a good opportunity here, at least for May 17th. We have a good opportunity for the 160s, the 165s, especially if price really runs. We can probably see it get up into the 170s. So I would say, depending on what your account can afford, I would probably look at the 165s, you know, because we have a $7 ATR. So obviously, by the end of the week, AMD can definitely move $10. So by the end of the week, we could already be above 160, potentially already up at 165, which would then give you a whole nother week to get up to like 170 potentially as well too. All right. But again, just take everything into consideration. Full time frame continuity is currently mixed. And again, we are still making lower highs, right? So you want to see market structure. Doesn't mean don't enter. I'm just saying you want to see market structure eventually get broken. But with this gap, can't ignore that gap. Just would love to see, we could take advantage of that gap. And then if price gets above this high, assuming you're still holding, ideally what you're looking for is for it to, or you're not clicking, for it to cross, come back, and then ultimately head higher. All right. So we could be getting in early around here because this could be the pivot that shows us that we're making, higher lows. All right. All right. Coming back to, so I did Neo, AMD, Netflix, Meta, Google. Sorry, just going through my list, y'all. Okay, almost done. So let's go to cost real quick. So if you got in cost when I think both Sal and I alerted it, I think he's in the 800s and the 770s. I took the 750s. Honestly, any strike would have been fine in my opinion. But what did we do this past week? We took the month up. We went 2-2 reversal on the month. So we could potentially be coming back to attack all-time highs. Which is ultimately why he chose 800. We don't have earnings until May 30th. So again, this could be a part of the earnings run up, right? Looking at the week, a lot of consolidation, right? But looks like we might be breaking out to the upside. A lot of consolidation with the bodies, but with the wicks, what do? We swept the lows here, tried to here, but again, pivoted, right? Here we were making lower lows, we pivoted, now we are making higher lows. So ideally what we're looking for is the two up continuation to take out, this high at 752.31. Bullet, excuse me, we do have, I believe this is considered a bearish reject. Shit, wrong one. My bad. Believe this is considered a bearish rejection block, but um, shit, the way cost has been moving lately, I don't know. But the reason why I chose 750 is because of this level right here, 752. And I gave myself 2 weeks. So if we can take out, we're at 743. We're talking about a ticker that moves $11, right? Obviously not $11 in one direction, but hell, if we can take out, 752 shit by Wednesday, and then we got a whole nother week to go. Shit. Would love to see it creep into this rejection block and see what kind of damage the Bulls can do here. But ultimately, yeah, definitely like it. 1 second, y'all. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Okay. But yeah, once we can break through that, right? We ended on the daily, we ended it 2-2 continuation, but also, created a fair value gap that broke structure back to the upside over here as well, too, right? So would love to see another fair value gap get created here, right? As long as the next candle displaces above this high at 747, would love to see that. And yeah, would love to see that get taken care of. Ultimately, I want to see us attack the gap here, right? Um, or at least get up to the beginning of the gap at 756. And maybe that's where we can probably see a pullback. And that would make sense considering, we take out the highs, that creates a broadened formation, potential chance for exhaustion, and then, possibly pullback before, making the next step up. All right. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to talk about, I forget who mentioned it, but let's look at so we're looking at the daily here for a second, right? They were looking at the 5 minute. Now, listen, if you're in a swing, something that's 2 weeks, one, you should not be looking at the 5 minute. When did this start? Friday, May 3rd, 9:30, right? Here, right? So I imagine because the person said that there was weakness. So I imagine they cut during this pullback, right? So we're talking about from 9:45 to about 10:20, or even maybe during this pullback here, right? Because you see there's two pullbacks that happened, right? All that happened is this low came out and took out that low, swept the lows, and then we just kept it running from there, right? So when you see that on the 5 minute, do not freak out. Do not freak out and get out. Full time frame continuity was still bullish. Higher time frames were still bullish at this point in time. So even getting this pullback, right? I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have. So it pulled all the way back to 735. That's no big deal, considering that we're still looking for a $15 move over the next 2 weeks on a ticker that moves $12 on the day. If you took the daily entry, right? For me, strat wise, your stop loss should have been down there at 720, or if you're using the entry of 734, then you could have used that as your exit. Honestly, this is only if I would only use that if I'm like day trading. But if I'm swinging, my stop loss is down here at 720.63. Or if you want to use ICT, the moment price displaces away from the fair value gap, so basically goes below and closes below 729.86. So let's zoom back into the 5 minute, right? Where was it? Is it here? Yeah. So zoom back into the 5 minute. The moment price gets below this low here, right? Essentially, then yeah, cut it. But again, I digress. The earliest time frame, if you're swinging, 2 weeks out, the earliest time frame that you should be looking at is the 65, right? So if you're looking at the 65, let me see what is, or I'm sorry, the hour, right? So if you're looking at that, there's the here, right? So you get that first hour, we trigger to the upside, right? Price comes back down to 733. That's probably in the beginning of the day. Comes back down to 733, but it never displaces below, where was that? Never displaces below the um, daily fair value gap. So I have no reason to exit this trade, right? And then you're looking at it, if you're looking at it from again, from the 60, excuse me, the hour, this thing never gives you a reason to exit this trade at all, right? One of the things that we learn about in the strat, and maybe I'm going to start talking about that a little bit more, is the flip, right? The flip is essentially the next hour candle or the next candle that tries to negate what the first candle did. So when you have the opening candle of the day, the next candle is probably going to try to negate what that candle did. So you get a run up, right? And essentially think about it logically. There are people who have entered the trade yesterday or earlier in the week, right? So they're probably just taking profit right here because they get a nice little run up to open up for the first hour of the market, and then they're probably taking their profit, right? Because at the time we've made a higher high, right? We've taken out this high and we've made higher. Really? Okay, here we go. And map, yeah, shit. We even. Oh no, that's. I'm sorry, that's not until the third candle. But the point is that we made higher highs. We're approaching a resistance. So yeah, you might get some people, or the algos, excuse me, that are taking profit, right? But the trade never invalidates. Never, never invalidates looking at the 65. Excuse me, the hour. Shit, my bad, y'all. Never gives you a reason once to get out of the trade because you never get a 2-2 reversal. Even though this candle is red, it's still a 2 up. It's still a 2 up candle, right? So what happens on the next candle? Bulls take over and just run the shit up. That's it. Just run the shit up, right? Now, because of the way the last hour candle closed, yeah, you might get a pullback, on Monday with the way the last hour closed. But again, trade doesn't invalidate. So not like ridiculing or anything like that, but this is how when you let your emotions come into play, and that allows you to lose out on money, essentially leaving money on the table, right? So let that be a lesson. If you're swinging 2 weeks out, again, the hour is the smallest time frame. For me, with all due respect, if you're swinging months out, honestly, I look at the daily, but the smallest time frame that you should look at would be the 4 hour. If you're swinging, I mean, shit, honestly, it really would be the daily. If you're swinging months out, right? You can't let the little shit and the little noise on the 5 minute deter you from, right? Because all this does is just makes a double bottom W formation, and then we out. If anything, this shit gives you another opportunity to add to your swing if you wanted to. Could have probably, well, I hate saying it, but I'll take Salisbury. You could have probably loaded the fucking boat here at this one, right? And then from 735, shit runs all the way up to 747. Lotto, 740 calls for cost. Lotto on Friday. Just saying. All right, let me see the chat real quick. Is there a video? I mean, yeah, there's a lot of it. I mean, if you're asking if I've made one yet, no. I'm just starting to feel comfortable pointing out. Notice I'm not really teaching it. I'm just pointing it out, right? Um, so I'm just starting to feel comfortable with that. But no, I haven't created a video, right? If you could do Palo Alto, hell no. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I got you. All right. So that's that for cost. So trade is still good, right? If you got in with me, trade is still good. I forget where we last closed, percentage wise, but you should be up. I don't know what the fucking percentage is, but you should be up. All right. All right. I did Neo, AMD, cost, never. We could take out, since we're looking kind of bullish, we'll take out low. But chart low, I think there's room to the downside there. Adobe. Adobe. So I'm in the 500 call for May, right? So we're talking a $15 move. What am I seeing? One, on the month, right? Clearly, we found some support because we definitely got the nice ass reversal. Not reversal, excuse me. We got the nice run up. We have not reversed on the monthly just yet, but we all know Adobe. It would be nothing for Adobe to take out the month at the rate that it's moving right now, right? I think, and I could be wrong. Nope. Yeah, not quite there. But ever since I think it was Jerry that put out like the whole family um the family Ferrari list, like watching it. So like I've kind of just I said I would do Adobe, Netflix, and cost. So every single week, I'm pretty much going to be stalking those three tickers and watching them constantly. So please be on the lookout for any call outs for cost, Netflix, or Adobe going forward. And I've been stalking this bitch since 1979. I missed out on my first play. Asked Salas, when I told him that we were going to head back down to 485, and I completely missed that move. I saw the quadruples here, and I was like, "Nah, we about to head back down," and I missed it because I got focused on some other tickers. All right, so let me say this one more again, just like I said about Netflix. As a matter of fact, let me show you Netflix real quick, so you can trust and believe in what I'm about to say next. Come on, what's going on? Why is my internet right? Hold on one second. There we go. Okay, Netflix. I don't know why I keep saying that. Like everything's good. Netflix gave a double outside formation. Okay, pay attention to what happened after that. Netflix ran up. All right. Adobe on the weekly is giving you a double outside formation. I repeat, Adobe on the week is giving you a double outside formation, which is the reason why I've been screaming it all Friday. Actually, I've been screaming it before that, but all Friday I've been screaming it. Okay. So again, it's giving you a double outside formation. All right. Now, what I'm looking for, what I'm looking for is what it did. I wanted it to displace above this low because I know that this low was going to act as resistance. So ideally, what I'm looking for is for that same low, maybe price pulls back into the same low, but wicks basically does not displace back below it, uses that as support to continue the run up. Then you have your next swing low at that 498.70. Hence the reason why I chose the 500 call. Ideally, I'm really wanting it to get up to up here, 506.92. All right. Now, looking at the daily, we do have a bearish fair value gap as well too above, but we went 312 to the upside on Friday. Well, excuse me, 10 last week. Friday we went two up, right? So again, what we're looking for is for the 2-2 continuation. We do have a high up here that needs to be tested at 493.31, but I would love to see us I would really love for price to just eat through this bearish fair value gap and really move to the upside. I'm really wanting to see what price is going to do up here at 504 and 506.92. Hence the reason why I gave 2 weeks. Because yes, I know that it can hit the $15 move in one day, absolutely. But I wanted to give it some more time because I know it's going to have a little resistance along the way. But Adobe is looking really good. I would love to see price get back up to buy side liquidity at 593.87 to come back and attack and hopefully complete this gap up here, over here, excuse me, not up here. My apologies. All right, so again, I'm in the 500 call for May 17th. So I suggest that you check that out. And last but not least, before I get to y'all stuff, is first, actually, let's look at Bitcoin. All right, so Bitcoin is something I think should be on your radars, right? Why? We swept lows. We ended up with a hammer to finish the week, right? So potentially reversal back to the upside. Um, give you this, and then also give you that. That's the fair value gap. So we swept lows, came down to 50% of the fair value gap, displaced out of it. So now we're looking for a 2-2 reversal back to the upside, targeting these highs and potentially these highs up here, right? So, but I mean, I feel like we're going to see, we're obviously going to see the 67,000 get taken out first. Looking at the daily for Bitcoin, again, 2-2 continuation, just couldn't get above this high. So maybe we'll get the push this week, um, for that to happen and take out those highs and ultimately get back to 67,241. I expect there to be a lot of resistance there, right? We have three different candles that tried to get above that level and failed to do so. Okay. Now, with that being said, the way that we have, majority bullish time frame continuity, the weekly is looking good, the daily is looking good. I went ahead and looked at coin. I have not charted out Mara or Riot, but I suggest that you do. Okay. And we're looking for, again, things that are similar, right? So here on the weekly for coin, what do we get? A fair value gap that broke structure, right? Just like we have a fair value gap for Bitcoin, what do we hit? 50% of the way, displaced out of it, and then sweeping the lows, what do we make? The bottom of a broadening formation. All right. So we're coming from the lows. This also, we get a 2-1-2 continuation to the downside, but this sets us up for a 1-2-2 rev strat back to the upside if we can get that reversal, right? So if price displaces, or excuse me, cracks this and hopefully displaces above it of 232.71, then we can start to really attack this pivot machine gun here, right? We have a high here, high here, high. Each high is higher than that. Excuse me, each high is lower than that of the previous range. So every single one of these on the week, excuse me, every single one of these on the week are targets, right? I would probably say look at, um, I would probably say look at not the 250, but probably, I don't want to say 300 either because that's way too far out. But this shit really does move. Coin can move. Let me look at the contracts and I'll alert it later on. Let me get a good look at the contracts because yeah, this shit can move when it really wants to. Um, right. So we're looking. I mean, we do see at 239, we're probably going to have some good resistance there, right? Because of that double top. So we'll see how that goes. But again, looking at the weekly, we're set up for a 1-2 rev strat. Looking at the daily, inside candle, actionable signal. Now, that could go both ways. Either A, we can get the 2-1-2 to the downside, but I would say look for it to wick once it gets back into the same fair value gap, right? Um, but yeah, coin is definitely right. Looking at Bitcoin, looking at the way that thing can move, coin is definitely something that I would say keep on your radars. Could go 2-1-2 to the upside um, as well. And yeah, we could be looking at potentially, I would say, yeah, you could probably even target the 250s if you're trying to do that on like a weekly as well too, right? It'll probably hit and probably keep going as well. So that's my 2 cents on coin. I'll alert the contract because I really think this one could, potentially move pretty well. If it doesn't, then it is what it is. Just looking at Bitcoin and the way that it's moving, and earnings was good. So maybe it's just profit taking. Maybe Friday was just profit taking, really. And I like the way that we wicked right off the previous day's open. We came back and tested the previous day's open, and we wicked off of that 216. So I think we may be dealing with again, the push up. We're looking at a displacement back to the upside, and we'll see. I don't know if coin is if it already ran after hours or whatever, but yeah, we'll see. All right. Let me see what y'all put in the chat. Um, MRO. So we're gonna do MRO and we'll do Palo Alto. MRO. So in the month we got the 2-2 reversal. Hmm. Outside week on MRO, but we did dip into this fair value gap and it closed just slightly above it. So, oh, okay. Yeah. So just from the month and the week, I think we're going to see something like this. All right. So after making this bearish fair value gap, you see the three tried to come right back into it and test it, only to fail, and then expanded the range to the downside. It's just that obviously you have support here with this fair value gap. So I think we may see a bounce, maybe to come back either A to the fair value gap or maybe to come back to the open of this three candle at 27.67 only to reject and then come back down, in my opinion, right? Because again, higher time frames technically went out. So I think we'll be seeing something like that. In which case, if that does happen, then I mean, that's great for puts, right? Looking at the daily again, you get the 2-2 reversal, but it's a 2-2 reversal to the downside, actually, right? Same thing that we saw on the weekly is kind of the same thing that's happening here on the daily, right? Price tried to come back and retest after making the fair value gap. Price tried to come back and retest and try to take out or come back above, I should say, displace above this swing low. Failed coming into the fair value gap and trying to displace above the fair value gap. Excuse me, the swing low. And so now we're seeing potentially that rejection back to the downside. So again, I know it's a bullish two down, but I would not be surprised, just keeping it a stack, if we see this potentially do again something like this, try to dip in again, only to continue straight down. You do have a gap below that needs to be taken out as well too. So I would imagine for XLE, yeah, I think the same thing's going to happen. Yep. Yeah, because larger time frames are showing bearishness. I think what it is that major move to the downside has been made. So you probably, again, stocks don't just move in one direction. So you're probably gonna see what happened over here, right? You see how um, we hit a high, exhaust, we make a serious run down, right? We take out lows, creating a new low, and then what do? I think y'all would call this a bear flag, right? Just kind of sits sideways and then drops again. So same thing might happen, right? Just sitting sideways and then drops again. Or again, runs up a little bit, but then drops again. So I would say just be aware of that. Um, and kind of build that game plan out for it. But honestly, if I'm swinging calls, I'm not swinging it for very long because of what the higher time frames are showing. I'd probably swing calls up to maybe look for that 27 call, but that about it. I'm not looking any higher than that. And if I end up being wrong, so be it. But right now, with what the charts are showing me, uh-uh. Damn, I'm thinking I held my oxy calls too long. Um, Yeah, same thing. Oxy looks very similar to XLE and also what MRO is doing. Um, yeah, see, major pullback on the higher time frames. Yep, 2-2 reversal on the month after exhausting, taking out highs over here. 2-2 reversal on the month. Um, you know, Nirvana on the week as well too. So we're looking for that, you know, 3-2 to the downside. And again, you may get price come back and try to retest this previous swing low here. Um, because again, would have been support, but now that we've crossed below it, displaced below it, could act as resistance, only to do that, right? So looking at the daily, again, what we talked about, right? Major drop, bear flag, drop again, taking out lows over here. So then again, we might get bear flag. Um, and yeah, this thing ate right into a bearish fair value gap over here. So yeah, price would probably get back into the same fair value gap over here, right? Only to take out the lows. Probably take out that low, really. But yeah, it's doing is essentially it's doing what it did over here. Consolidate, run up, pull back, run up, right? So same thing, drop, run up, excuse me, corrective activity, pulls back further, probably corrective activity, pulls back further. So again, if you're in calls, I probably would not hold them for very, very long. If it hits your target, take your calls and get out for XLE, right? Again, you might get a nice little run on Monday and Tuesday, but I imagine if the market starts running um, bullish if the market starts running bullish, then you'll probably see XLE drop. And I think there was articles about possibly price dropping. Could be wrong. I think I saw something like that. But yeah. Last one. Palo Alto. Yeah, perfect example of using a previous high that should have been resistance now as support. What does this low do? Comes right back down and to test it is now using it as support. And since doing so, it's made a higher low, right? So we're looking for on the month, we're looking for potential 1-2-2 rep strat. And again, pay attention to that, right? When you get a 3-1 holy grail setup and then the two either goes down or up, sometimes you that sets up into again from the inside candle as a rev strat, just like what may happen here on this month. You may get a rev strat back to the upside. Looking at the weekly, so weekly is still a two up, even though that's bearish. The weekly is still a two up. It cleared the highs, still respecting above the highs as well too. Just looks like really um, it hit this candle's and this candle's close and open. Excuse me, close and open, and yeah, finding some resistance. Excuse me, finding some resistance around that level at 300. But yeah, I can definitely see room to the upside. I would probably target, this high up here, not necessarily that one, but yeah, I'll probably look at possibly the 330s for Palo Alto. Um, I'll let you decide the expiration. And then looking at the daily, right? We're still making since this pivot. We're still making higher lows as well. And yeah, we have a potential, honestly, to TTO back to the upside above 302.40. And then, yeah, short hop and a skip back up to 320. So I'll probably say look at 320s, 330s. But yeah, Palo Alto looks good. And I know like people are looking at the gap, but baby steps, baby steps. All right. With that being said, let me see what we got. Appreciate the input. Yep. With that being said, love, peace, and chicken grease. I'll post this when it is done converting. And I'll see y'all in the group. All right. No problem, Bama.